A very good morning to all of you. Welcome to Super Coaching by Textbook IAS. This is Venkatesh, your faculty for geography. And in this session, we'll discuss about, as you can see in this picture, the geopolitical implications or the geopolitical flashpoints of melting ice. By the way, even melting ice can have some kind of advantages. You all might have heard about melting ice at the Arctic Ocean, where it is rapidly melting. In fact, if you see that the rate of melting in the last 40 years, if you see the extent of area, it is quite a astonishing thing. Some of the reports say that even around 75% of the Arctic ice has been melted, and it is continuing very rapidly in the last few years. So you can see that it will melt like anything in the near days. So as soon as the ice melts, the opportunity of new trade routes emerge. As you can see this picture, Arctic Ocean and the new trade routes, both connecting the North Atlantic towards the North Pacific via Canada, Alaska, USA, and the other way via the Arctic Ocean, Russia, towards the Pacific Ocean across the Russian coast. So you have both the things. That's what you will call it as Northwest Passage and the Northern Sea Route. The Northern Sea Route, NSR, that is what you call across the Russia region on the towards the Pacific from Atlantic, and the Northwest Passage, this is via Canada and Alaska of USA into the same route. Now, the implications of this trade route is it will change the what the world we know. The world we know, which is having so much amount of trade implications, trade relationships, partners, all this, everything will change. You might have seen that in the future, in the past, it is, if you have observed the geopolitical relationship among the countries in the last 200 years, the trade, the geographical routes has wider implications. Keeping these wider implications into consideration, you'll also see that there are so many kinds of changes here, and such changes are UPSC, changes are observed carefully across the world. Even UPSC asks questions on that, whether you are aware about such kind of developments or not. So this is the topic, the geopolitical flashpoints of melting ice, which will change the world which we know. Keeping this into consideration, let us see the topics. Say example, one of the thing about this geopolitical implications, as you can see in this picture, is the Arctic Ocean region. Okay, if you see the countries of the Arctic Council, they have a council as well, which is exclusively managed by these countries. That is the reason why it is called as council, isn't it? You can see Russia, you can see Alaska, that is part of USA, you can see around the Canada, you can see the Greenland, which is represented by the country of Denmark. By the way, you should know this, Greenland, it is represented by the country of Denmark. You will see Iceland, you will see Norway, Sweden, Finland, all are the member countries of the Arctic Council, where India also is a observer status. So India has an observer status. That means who might not be having the voting rights in terms of decision making, but definitely we have an observations about what the events are happening here. Definitely we will be aware about all such kind of things. So we have an observer status. If you see this Arctic Council, the key aspect of this Arctic Council is it is not a global common. Have you heard about the UNCLOS treaty? United Nations Convention on Law of the Sea, UNCLOS. As per the international UNCLOS treaty, high oceans, high seas, which are crossing the 200 nautical miles, say from the coastline, that will be belonging to the global world. So this is the global world. You can see in this picture. This belongs to everyone. Whereas this part, you can see here, this is part of the exclusive economic zone of Russia. So it is called as per the UNCLOS. You all know this thing. From the, if this is the coastline, the baseline, from here 200 nautical miles is what we call it as exclusive economic zone, as the name suggests, EEZ, exclusive economic zone. The one exclusive, it belongs to that particular country, and it is an economic zone. That means what? The fishing, that the kind of the fishing activities, the things like mineral oil, the hydrocarbons which were stored in this part of the region will be exclusively used by Russia. That is the opportunity. Now, as you see this, it is not part of the global commons. Global commons means belongs to everyone. For example, imagine in the middle of the Indian Ocean, if there is a deep sea mining is being carried out, whatever the things are there, this belongs to the entire world, not to a particular country. That's what is called global common. Whereas Antarctic Ocean, that belongs to a global common. Whereas Arctic, it is not completely a global common. You find this is a exclusive territory of a certain country, which can they use it for the maritime purpose, for the trade, for the kind of economic activities. This is the kind of things we will be observing here. As you see here, the countries like these countries, they have a huge role to play. Whether it is Russia, whether it is the Norway, Sweden, Finland. Recently, we have observed Norway talking about the deep sea ocean mining because of these kind of things. You can see Canada, Alaska. It will change the world of what we know. It will change the geopolitical trade, the countries' relationships, everything will change. For example, let us talk about the Northern Sea Route, NSR, Northern Sea Route. Then I will come back to the Northwest Passage, that is across the Canada. First, we will talk about the Northern Sea Route of Russia. You can see this Northern Sea Route. It has a huge role to play. Now, if you see this exclusive economic zone of Northern Sea Route of Russia, okay, this is across these regions. So, when you see this Northern Sea Route, it starts from all the way from the Arctic region, from the Arctic Council, and then it moves across this route, comes via the Bering Strait towards the Chinese region, towards the Asianic region, towards the Indo-Pacific region, the new word which you can use, right? So, you can see that it is the Asian economies which are the major consuming centers of the world, isn't it? The big economies of Japan, okay, South Korea, the Asian economies of China, Taiwan, or well, from even you can say about these countries here. These are all bigger economies, and India as well. All this thing, in fact, this has a huge potential. You all might be aware that India's trade with respect to Russia, with respect to the Arctic Council in terms of oil, has been significantly increased after the after the 2019, after the Ukraine war. And you have seen that one of the place here, there is a place. Can you name this place which is very important for us? So, if you see this place is called as Murmansk. You can see this Murmansk. It is part of the which ocean? Okay, this is also very important. Murmansk, part of the Barents Sea. This is unofficially called as the capital of the Arctic region, capital of the Arctic Council. Remember, it is unofficial. There is no such kind of official things. It is an unofficially called as a capital. There is huge amount of trade happens across the Bering Sea, across the Barents Sea. Sorry, Barents. Okay, this word is very important. Barents Sea is Barents Sea, and the place in use Murmansk. This is a very, very important. And from the Murmansk region, the trade of India has been significantly increasing. You have seen that such kind of increase is happening. And from the Murmansk, we are moving towards, see, this will be the Murmansk region, and from here, we are moving towards across the Bering Strait. So, from here, Bering Strait towards the Vladivostok, and then via the Malacca Strait towards catering to the needs of the Asia as well as to India. So, now what happens is, the old route is, the existing route is via St. Petersburg. From the St. Petersburg across these oceans, across the across the Mediterranean Ocean, the Suez Canal, Red Sea, and then into India. So from St. Petersburg to Mumbai, it almost takes around 25 days. The amount of trade, it will take almost around 25 days. And these are all geopolitical choke points. If you can remember the geopolitical choke points here, can you name the geopolitical choke points here? Anyone? This is the choke point, Suez Canal. So what happens with Suez Canal? It's a very, very narrow region. There's only one line of trade happens. So certain ships has to travel from one side to other and then only from the other side to this side. So there is only one lane of shipping route for a few kilometers. So all the ships gets blocked at the Suez Canal. The moment you come out of the Suez Canal, you have seen that, even in the Suez Canal in 2021, if you remember the blockade, do you remember the blockade? Okay, do you remember the blockade? In fact, the 2021 Suez Canal blockade, if you can see, this would be the path of the Suez Canal. This blockade, after that blockade, the northern sea route has become much more prominent, and even India and Russia had an established connectivity between Chennai and Vladivostok. We have a Chennai-Vladivostok Eastern Maritime Corridor. So, from the Bering Sea here, okay, if you can travel across the Arctic Ocean and then come via the what is this strait? Bering Strait. This is the Bering Strait. Bering Strait, and this is the Barents Ocean. You can say Barents Ocean. Then you have the Kara Sea. From these places, the trade can move from Russia, and then it will come across the Bering Strait and then towards the economies of the Asia and then to India via the Malacca Strait. So this is a very, very important route. And India also has an economic corridor with this. Now with these kind of things, Russia has also developed so many amount of ships powered by nuclear called as icebreakers. So they can break the ice. Decent amount of trade is already happening. Remember the word already happening. But the problem is you don't have complete amount of ocean which is beyond the amount of sunlight heat is very less here. Because of that, it is completely ice. We only have trade for only few months. Remaining months we need icebreakers. So the potential is, as of now it is less. As of now utilization is less, but the potential is huge. Why? There was reports that by 2050 the amount of ice melting in the Arctic Council would be so huge that it can be easily allowed for complete trade. Ice melting will be happening, so there will be not much ice, which will provide the opportunity for that ships to travel. And even in 2030 as well, there is some reports say that even by 2030 you have that opportunity. I hope you all are liking this topic, isn't it? That is the advantage of this. And then, so these words, okay, please remember the Murmansk, part of the Barents Sea, and then you have the Kara Sea. These places are very important. Then along the northern sea route, the Bering Strait, and then towards Vladivostok, all such places are very, very strategically important points for our preparation. This will change the relationships. How does it change the relationship, my dear friends? Think about it. The India-Russia relationships will get much more deeper. India-Russia will get much more deeper. Already Russia and China are having very good relationships because China wanted to have a proper opportunity here because they are also hugely influenced by the Suez Canal. Not just that, there is also another challenge. Do you remember this? What is this country called as across the Horn of Africa? There is a country called as Djibouti. There is a country called as Djibouti. Do you remember? With this Djibouti, it is almost around 5 military bases or 5 foreign military bases in Djibouti. Why? Because they will control the access of the Bab el-Mandab Strait. Djibouti controls the Bab el-Mandab Strait, because of which you have these kind of things. And this is how the existing route will be having the importance. I hope you are all following this, isn't it? Keeping this into consideration, this route provides a much needed opportunity, and also there is an opportunity of deep sea mining, which is becoming a very strategic importance in the recent era, and that is also having a role to play. This is what UPSC targets about. There is a particular trend, there is a particular need, there is a particular significance. That significance is usually what the UPSC targets about, and such questions are regularly being asked. So, what is the questions they can ask? They can ask about these traits. They can ask about, they can ask about the countries of what do you mean by exclusive economic zone? They can ask about the member countries of Arctic Council. They can ask about, so the member council of Arctic Council. They can also ask about the global commons concept. I told you, global commons. So that they can ask you. What not? They can ask so many varieties. Also, they can ask you about the another thing which they can has a potentially which can change the world is the Northwest Passage, connecting the trade between say Europe and or between America and Japan. For example, any ship which is moving from Shanghai to New York, as of now, it is moving across which canal? What is the name of the canal which will happen? So that is now moving via the, which one? It would be the, okay, let me change the color. Okay, that would be the Panama Canal, right? Across the Panama Canal, you are finding that trade is happening. So this will now move across this passage from New York. So you will see that this is Canada, this is Alaska. So New York would be here. Across this, the passage will move towards this thing. So across the Panama Canal, the Northwest Passage, it will be moving. Now the potential opportunity here is Canada. Canada has so much amount of economic opportunity advantage because if they get the access point of this Northwest Passage, they are also talking as there is also culturally, there are so many indigenous communities living in Alaska, part of Canada, as well as Greenland here, who are the indigenous community. They wanted to claim this region as, as their region, and they wanted to name this passage with respect to their names. That is also one of the advantage you have. So keeping this into consideration, the role of Canada in terms of geopolitical importance will increase. The role of Russia would increase. Arctic Council would increase. This is what I mean by, what do you mean by this will change the world which we know in terms of trade, in terms of economic opportunities. Does that mean that it will stop only here? It will change what we know in so many other aspects. So what is the key word? This will change the world in so many other aspects. What more other aspects? If you see this region, you have so many challenges as well. One of the challenges, we have to follow the global sustainable development rules. Otherwise, it will have so much amount of negative impact. This kind of melting ice and ignorance of the melting ice and its impact can have multiple impacts across the world. How? Let me tell you about this. Say example, if you talk about life below water, the marine life would be significantly impacted because the ice melting has its own consequences which we'll discuss now. You can have an impact on the climate because melting ice is a directly global warming melting ice that has an impact. You can talk about the things like the strategic significance which is changing, which can vary the peace and the land. You can talk about these kind of things very cleanly. You can talk about affordable and clean energy because it's a part of energy trade. So mostly it is life below water and the climate action which has a huge role to play. How? Do you remember the concept of albedo? Anyone who can give me the idea of what you mean by albedo? Albedo means what? The amount of energy which is reflected by the sun in the original short wave form. So there is a certain energy which we receive from the sun, the radiation, the energy, the waves. That energy is reflected back by the earth and the atmosphere system put together in the original short waveform. Say on the planet earth, 35 units of energy received from the sun, we are directly reflecting it back. That is what you call it as albedo. As you can see this, this smiley is not a smiley, it is a sun. You can see from the sunlight, excuse me, majority of the sunlight, you can see here, majority of the sunlight is reflected back by the snow. Snow, it is white. White reflects sunlight energy. We all know it. In summer, we wear white. Why? Because it will reflect. So that's the thing. So the snow, fresh snow, ice has almost around 85 to 90% of the energy which is received from the sun will be reflected. Now, when the ice melts, when you don't find much amount of the snow, the challenge here is this will change. Okay, because of this there will be more melting points, and there are huge challenges because of this. See, what are the challenges you have because of this? One, the sustainable development goals will be affected. One, increase in albedo, increase in this albedo will lead to more sea surface temperatures in the global commons, in the Arctic Council, and that will lead to the more amount of melting. So that cycle, this is what we call it as loop, right? So albedo will increase. Because of albedo increase, temperatures will increase. Because of that, sea ice will melt. Because of more melting, more albedo, and this cycle loop will be continuing. Because of this continuing, the rate of melting would be becoming much faster. As this becomes faster, it will have a consequence on the climate of the world. You all know that there are oceanic currents which will vary. There will be sea level rise because of melting ocean. Because of melting ocean of sea level rise, you can see that there will be coastal flooding, coastal inundation. All these kind of things will also change the world which we know, right? So this is the negative consequences. Not just that, it might have an impact on ocean currents. It might have an impact of glacial melting in the Himalayan region, which we call it as what? The third pole, right? We have so many kinds of impacts, right? So keeping this into considerations, there are so many variations, my dear friends. And not just that, the marine life, the ocean current impact. In fact, even India has so much amount of studies which we conduct regularly in the Arctic Council because of what could be the possible impact, right? So this is the thing. Ultimately, what is the key word? This melting ice, it will change the world of which we know. What does it do? This melting ice, it will change the world which we know. It will definitely change the world. How does it change? Whether it is the positive one, whether it is the negative ones, we have to wait and see. We have to see how well we are prepared, how well we are managing these kind of new opportunities and also the new threats. That is where the relationship among the institutions, among the countries, the peace, all these things will come into consideration, and that will be talking about the way forward. This is how you have to understand the linkages of a topic. You have to understand the issues out of it and how UPSC can frame questions out of these things. Hope you all have understood this. What we'll be doing is, keeping these things into considerations, I would be creating some quizzes, some MCQ practice as well. Okay. You can join my Telegram channel. Okay, you can scan it. You can see the name is also very unique. Venkatesh's Geographical Voyage. We will be having so many varieties of, we'll be starting around the quiz. We haven't started, but we will start the quizzes. We will start around the things like MCQs, practice of the previous year questions. We'll talk about, the new current affairs. You'll talk about strategies. One-stop solution for the subject of geography for UPSC preparation in one word, right? This is about it, and please don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more such updates, and also please like this video, share it to your friends so that they will also learn. Remember, sharing is caring. Thank you.